The tear opened above Fifth Avenue, without thunder, without light, without anything a camera could later slow down and explain. 1 second the sky held its ordinary gray, and the next a seam had been cut into it, and something enormous stepped through and stood on the asphalt, like the street had always been waiting for him. He was taller than the buses that stopped dead around him. Gray skin the color of old granite left out in weather. A face built from flat planes rather than curves, eyes burning a dull red that didn't flicker the way fire does. He wore no cape, no insignia, nothing that asked to be photographed. He simply stood there, turning his head with the unhurried patience of a man reading a menu he already knew he wouldn't order from. Horns, screaming. A woman dropped her coffee and didn't notice. None of it moved him. He was not lost. He was not afraid. He was cataloging. Screens told him more than the street did. Storefront televisions, subway platform monitors, a taxi's dashboard display all offered the same rotating parade. A blond man in a blue suit smiling down from a Vought billboard, promising safety in a voice that had clearly been focus tested. Darkseid watched the loop twice. He was not impressed by the man's shoulders or his jaw. He was interested in the fact that an entire population had organized itself around trusting that face. He found the tower within the hour. It rose over the others the way a throne rises over a court, and he walked to it without breaking stride, without checking traffic, without acknowledging the 2 patrol cars that arrived, and then very sensibly did not get out. Security doors that had cost several $1,000,000 to install opened for him the way wet paper opens. He did not kill the guards in the lobby. He simply walked past them and they let him. Because some part of every one of them understood immediately and without words that resistance here was not a decision available to them. Word reached the top floor before he did. Homelander met him in the atrium, cape settling, jaw already set into the expression he used for men who thought they were somebody. "You want to tell me who the hell you are?" he said. "Or should I guess?" Darkseid looked at him the way a man looks at a door he has already decided to open. "I require whoever governs this place. That's me, sport. This is my building. My city." Homelander's smile widened, performing for an audience that wasn't in the room. "So why don't you turn right back around?" And he didn't finish the sentence. He fired instead, twin lines of heat lancing across the atrium, striking Darkseid square in the chest with a force that had ended buildings on other days. The beams broke against him and did nothing. No mark, no stagger. Darkseid did not so much as look down. Something in Homelander's face changed a fraction of a second, where the performance slipped and the real animal underneath looked out. He crossed the floor in an instant fist, already swinging with everything he had. It ended before it began. Darkseid caught the blow between 2 fingers, almost incidentally, and returned nothing more than the truth of the situation, a single motion that put Homelander on the marble breath-gone ribs screaming. The invincible man of America folded up small on his own floor. Darkseid did not gloat. He did not explain himself. He had confirmed something he already suspected and moved on. He could have finished it there. Some part of the calculation even suggested it, or a symbol removed a message sent. But another part of the calculation, colder and more useful, noted the billboards, the merchandise, the news anchors who said his name like a prayer. Homelander was not a threat. He was infrastructure. An infrastructure that already worked was not something a competent ruler discarded on principle. So he left him breathing on the floor and turned instead to the woman who had not moved from the doorway the entire time, who had watched the exchange with the flat, assessing stillness of someone doing arithmetic rather than feeling fear. Sister Sage did not speak yet. She was still calculating what there was left to offer a god who clearly needed nothing. Darkseid regarded her for a long moment, the first person in the building who had not tried to be something in front of him. "You," he said. "You will do." Behind him, Homelander pushed himself up onto one elbow, blood at the corner of his mouth, understanding for the first time in his life what it felt like to not be the most dangerous. By morning, the story on every network had already been shaped into something survivable. Nobody could pretend the thing on Fifth Avenue hadn't happened. Too many phones had caught it. Too many strangers had stood in the street filming a gray giant walk past them like traffic, so Vought didn't try to erase him. They gave him a label instead. Unidentified enhanced individual. Foreign soup of unknown origin. Security concern contained. The words did the one job that mattered. They kept the sentence Homelander lost to Darkseid from ever being written anywhere a camera could reach. The footage from inside the tower never left its servers, and 3 executives lost their jobs within the hour for reasons nobody explained to them. Sister Sage did not sleep. She spent the night doing what she always did when a problem refused to behave. She stripped it down until only the true shape remained. Every option she considered collapsed under the same weight. There was no weapon in Vought's arsenal built for something that treated heat vision as weather. Nothing they'd ever made with Compound 5 belonged in the same conversation as what she'd watched happen in that atrium. And pretending otherwise wouldn't buy them anything but time nobody was going to get. So she walked into the room where he waited, and she did not offer a fight. She offered an inventory. "You don't need us," she said, "but you'd be rebuilding things we already built. Media, data, a public that already does what it's told." She'd let that sit for exactly as long as it needed to. That's expensive to make from nothing. Darkseid considered her the way he considered very little else in this world, not as a threat, not as an amusement, but as a variable worth keeping. "You may continue," he said. "Nothing here is yours except by my permission." Sage didn't argue the distinction. She understood faster than anyone else in the building that there was no version of this conversation where Vought negotiated as an equal. There was only a version where it survived by being useful, and she intended to make herself the most useful thing in it. Within the week, the shape of the new order had settled into place without a single public announcement. Vought kept broadcasting. Vought kept manufacturing its heroes and its merchandise and its comfortable lies. But every decision that mattered now, ran through a single filter, and Sage had become the one translating his few directives into the 1,000 smaller decisions the building required. He did not sit in on meetings. He did not review campaigns, or product lines, or quarterly numbers. He set the horizon and let smaller minds fill in the terrain. He had long since stopped mistaking management for power. He took the measure of the rest of them without ceremony. Black Noir talked more than the suit suggested he should, narrating his own competence in a way nobody had ever bothered to correct. Darkseid noted the ability underneath the noise and filed the noise separately. A-Train's speed had obvious local uses. Darkseid marked him useful and moved to the next name. The Deep opened his mouth to offer something about coastal operations, and Darkseid had already looked past him before the sentence finished, which told the room everything it needed to know about where Deep ranked in this new accounting. Homelander for now was kept. His face was still on every billboard in the city. Millions of people still looked up and believed in him, and that belief still had a use provided. Homelander remembered who now decided how it got spent. What no one said aloud, though everyone in the tower now understood, it was where the room's true weight had shifted. Homelander still occupied his chair at the head of the table, but the chair had stopped meaning anything, and he was the only one who hadn't fully admitted it to himself yet. He smiled through the first several meetings. He nodded along when Sage relayed instructions instead of asking his opinion. He told himself this was temporary, a strategic patience, the kind of restraint a smarter man would recognize as its own form of strength. Underneath the smile, something had already started to rot. He had spent his entire life watching rooms rearrange themselves around him. Now the room had a different center, and he was drifting along its edge like everyone else, waiting to be told what came next. He did not like waiting. He had never liked waiting, and somewhere beneath the practiced warmth of his public face, a much older and much uglier part of him had already begun asking the only question that mattered to him now: how to serve this new order, but how to end it. 3 miles away, in the room with no view and worse coffee, Butcher watched the same billboards on a muted television and came to a different conclusion. Whatever had walked into that tower hadn't torn Vought apart. It had made the place run cleaner, quieter, meaner, fewer leaks, fewer rogue soups, fewer of the little cracks his people used to slip through. He'd spent years looking for a way to put Homelander in the ground, watching the footage nobody official would confirm he understood, with the particular disgust of a man recalculating an old plan that Homelander had just become the least of anyone's problems. Whatever was running things now didn't need to be beaten. It needed to be starved. Butcher couldn't touch Darkseid. Vought was another matter. Within days, the crew had a target list that had nothing to do with Darkseid and everything to do with the local machinery carrying out his new order. A compound Vought facility outside the city, a holding site where Vought had started quietly disappearing people who asked the wrong questions. A data hub feeding the network that told the public what to be afraid of. Frenchie handled the locks and the charges. Mother's Milk handled the exits. The head counts the plan for when the plan went wrong. Huey handled the part nobody else wanted, walking prisoners out of a building that still had guards in it, one shaking hand at a time. They won fights they were built to win. Vought Security, a mid-tier soup who folded faster than the footage, suggested he should. None of it touched Darkseid. None of it was supposed to. Sage clocked the pattern within a day and reported it upward as exactly what it was: local sabotage, not a threat worth his attention, and Darkseid let Vought handle it, because a handful of people breaking into warehouses wasn't a problem that required a god. Butcher understood the silence for what it was, not mercy, not safety. Homelander mattered less by the day, and it was eating him alive. He cornered Sage in an empty hallway and told her to find the thing that killed gods, a weakness, a gap, anything. She gave him nothing to work with because there was nothing there. "There's no version of this where you win a fight with him," she said. "There's only a version where you survive by not fighting him." He heard the sentence and decided it was cowardice rather than the only honest thing anyone had told him in weeks. He kept looking anyway. Old military contacts, Compound 5 variants. Nobody had signed off on Soup's still loyal enough not to ask why. Every lead gave him the same answer. Nothing proved it could hurt Darkseid, only that it might hurt everyone standing near him when it failed. He gathered the pieces regardless, because by then, the search had stopped being about finding a weapon and started being about refusing to sit still while the world decided he no longer mattered. Across the city, Butcher pulled his people out of the data hub an hour after Frenchie finished with it, and for the first time in weeks, the extraction went clean. No scramble, no chase, no Vought response beyond a delayed one. Mother's Milk noticed it too. "Fewer eyes on us tonight," he said, and neither of them liked the reason why. Something bigger was pulling Vaught's attention elsewhere, and neither of them knew what, only that it wasn't them. He found what he needed in a Pentagon office full of men who hadn't accepted the new arrangement, either men who understood that whatever they still had, rank, budget, the illusion of running anything, would be gone the moment this settled into something permanent. They didn't need convincing. They needed a plan with Homelander's face on it. Sage reported it upward within a day, the same way she'd reported the warehouse raids. "He's assembling assets," she told Darkseid. "Officers, aircraft, whatever Soups he can still buy loyalty from." Darkseid considered this for exactly as long as it deserved. "Let him," he said. Sage didn't ask why. She understood before she'd finished leaving the room. He wasn't unaware. He was unconcerned. A rebellion that gathered every disloyal officer and every unreliable Soup into one place on one night wasn't a threat to prepare for. It was a list writing itself. Sage watched Homelander build his army after that and said nothing further to him about it. She'd told him the truth once. There was no version of a second warning that would matter to a man Darkseid had already chosen to let run. Homelander stood in front of men who still called him Sir, and told them the story he actually believed, that America had never bent the knee to anyone, and neither had he, and neither should any of them. He read their silence as belief. Most of them were simply out of alternatives. He didn't need their faith. He needed their bodies, their hardware, one clean shot at the thing that had made him small. He set the date in secret, mistaking secrecy about the hour for secrecy about the rebellion itself. Sage already knew it was coming. She just hadn't been told when. The attack came at dawn over the same stretch of Manhattan where all of this had started. Jets, armor, every Soup still loyal enough to show up. Homelander led from the front, certain that numbers meant something they had never meant to Darkseid. Nothing reached him. Missiles lost their targeting before they finished their approach and fell into empty streets. The first wave of Soups never closed the distance. They simply stopped being upright, one after another, before any of them understood what had ended them. Aircraft dropped from formation. Weapons went dead in the hands still holding them. Officers who had planned a battle found themselves standing in the wreckage of one that had already been decided somewhere they couldn't see. Darkseid hadn't fought a war. He had ended a rumor about what a war between them might look like. Most of them stopped there. Homelander didn't, not because he believed he could win, because stopping meant admitting out loud in front of the men who'd followed him that he had never been what he told the country he was. He came at Darkseid one final time, and Darkseid, who had kept him alive once because a symbol still had use, now had nothing left to weigh in his favor. The Omega effect took him before he finished the sentence he'd been building toward. It wasn't close. It wasn't dramatic. The war ended exactly where it began. Darkseid deciding the lesser thing had outlived its usefulness. 3 miles away, Butcher moved on the chaos instead of into it, while what remained of Vought's attention burned on the fight. No official account would ever describe honestly. His crew hit a records facility clean, prisoners out, files gone, one more piece of the machine pulled apart before anyone thought to look their way. Sage remained. She had been useful before the rebellion, and nothing in it had given Darkseid reason to revise that judgment. Fear could force obedience. Fame could manufacture it. Neither could abolish choice. Darkseid had never wanted obedience that could still be withdrawn. He decided it no longer needed to be tolerated. Darkseid imposed anti-life. No exception emerged for Butcher's hatred, Huey's compassion, or anyone else's stubborn refusal to kneel. The argument ended. The refusal ended. The resistance didn't lose a final battle. It simply stopped being something anyone chose. Vought's name stayed on the buildings. The government kept its offices, its titles, its illusions. None of it meant anything beyond what Darkseid allowed it to mean. He required no crowds, no anthem, no belief. Homelander had spent a lifetime convincing a country he was a god. Darkseid needed no one to mistake him for one. He simply was.